All right, so today we are going to draw in two-point perspective. So for you guys, you're going to need to take the model stand that you use for your still life, whatever you set up for your still life, you'll use that, but with all the stuff off of it, right? So what if you used a coffee table, or some of you were using those bins, whatever you were using, you're going to need to set that up so that you see it in two-point perspective, which means you're going to see a corner closest to you in angles moving away from you. Most of you had it with the object set up as single point, when you were doing your still life. So what I have here is the model stand that I've set up. So I'm seeing that corner closest to me, the closest vertical edge. And I see that is actually vertical right there in front. And then I have two angles moving that way, okay? Now this is a square surface, a square object. So we're going to be talking about that as I'm drawing it. Okay, so I have my paper turned horizontally, and I'm going to draw this thing relatively small, and then we're going to figure out where the vanishing points are, okay? So this is how we do a perspective drawing observationally. It's not like what we did when we had the photograph and we diagrammed that. It's kind of like that, but with that you had the actual photograph. Here we have to have the image, okay? So you don't know where your eye level is, you don't know where your vanishing points are until you draw this, okay? So you're gonna have to draw it first before you can figure out where the vanishing points are. So I'm gonna draw this empty, and then I'm gonna put a couple things on it and show you what it is you're gonna need to do once you've got the model stand figured out. If you can't get the model stand figured out, then the objects you put on it, they're gonna be not right, okay? So you're gonna have to figure that out, okay? So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to draw that vertical edge that's closest to me. And I'm going to put it low down on my paper, about here. Okay, so this is the closest vertical edge, that corner. And then I'm going to figure out what the angles are that I have here and here. Okay, the way that I do that is with the plumb line. So I have to have a plumb line, and I sight it on that closest vertical edge, and I'm paying attention to the degree of the angles going this way and this way. Maybe more like that. So you need to have that vertical if you want to measure an angle, okay? You can't just draw an angle and expect that that's going to be correct. You have to have two lines to measure an angle. So I'm looking at this again, making sure that my angles are correct. This is going to be, a little bit straighter like that. And that angle looks about right. Now I'm using a ballpoint pen. You don't want to use a ballpoint pen. You want to use a pencil while you're doing this, 2B graphite pencil probably. And you want to draw it freehand, and you can see I'm not using a ruler, okay? So, and the reason for that is we're going to use a ruler later. And if you use a ruler now, it's going to be a harder thing for you to correct. So the idea, just like the sketch when we were drawing the hallway, the idea is that you're going to get this thing on the paper quickly, then analyze it, okay? So now I've got this closest vertical edge, and I've got my two angles, all right? I'm going to be using the closest vertical edge, the CVE I call it. I'm going to use that as a unit of measurement. And I'm going to count how many of these along this edge and how many of these along this edge, okay? So I've got my unit of measurement now, and it's going to be 1, 2, 3 about this way. And then this one is probably going to be longer because it's, you can see that angle's not as extreme. When you have a more extreme angle, that means this is more foreshortened, which means it's going to be shorter, okay? So 3, let's check, measure twice. 1, 2, 3, maybe a little more than 3, okay? So here's my unit of measurement. 1, 2, 3, and I said maybe a little bit more than 3, so just add a little bit there. Now on this side, probably going to be a little bit bigger. 1, 2, 3, 3 3/4 maybe. 1, 2, 3. So that would be 4, so it's going to come in a little bit there. So that's how long that is. So now I'm drawing these verticals. These verticals are going to be parallel to the edge of my paper. So this is the beginnings of my model stand. Now the other thing I want to do is I want to count back 1, 2, I want to see how far until the back edge passes through that plumb line, because that way I'm going to make sure that I'm showing not too much of that top surface, so that it is actually going to look like it's my eye level will be correct because of that. But if I show too much of the surface, like this is what a lot of people do, they'll draw something that looks like this. That would be way too much of the top surface, okay? That's an aerial view almost. So I don't have an aerial view. So I'm going to measure and count back. So it's 1, 2, it's less than 2, maybe 1.5, 1 3/4. So there's 1. That would be 2, so about there is where that line is going to pass through. The other thing I want to do is I want to observe against the plumb line where that back corner is. Now, if I was sitting, it's possible that you can be sitting and see the model stand actually like this, where those corners are going to line up, but mine don't line up. My corner's back over here somewhere, okay? Let's look at that again. Yeah, it's about there. So there's my model stand, all right? And I'm looking at these angles, and I can see that these two lines look like they're going to converge at a point over there, and that these two lines look like they're going to converge at a point over there, so that this is wider than this, right? So this is going to go that way, so 2-point perspective. Now we're going to have to diagram that and figure out exactly how we're going to, where our eye level is, but this is believable, okay? If you had something that looked like that, you know, this is what students do a lot, where it flares out, you know, getting wider as it moves away from you, you would know that's not right, okay? So this looks believable, okay? This looks like a foreshortened square, which is what that model stand is. It's a square model stand in 2-point perspective. So now I'm going to take some objects and I'm going to place them on there and show you how you would draw those objects on this model stand, okay? Okay. All right, so now I've got these objects on the model stand, and when I do that, I want to figure out where the footprint of that object is, okay? And with this, you can see through it. Now, how I place those is important, and how you place them is going to be important. I've got the edges of those objects right along the edge of the model stand. Now, they don't have to be right on the edge. They can be anywhere on here, as long as you're placing those, the base of it, or like the tabletop, parallel to the edge of whatever surface you're putting it on, you should be okay, all right? So I'll start off figuring out how wide to make this thing, okay? So again, using my unit of measurement, how big is that footprint? And it's about 1 unit of measurement, so it's going to be about here. So this would be the base. And then I'm going to come up. And how I'm coming up, how high I'm going to come up is going to be important. So I want to use this as a unit of measurement and figure out how tall this is. So it's 1, a little bit more than, or a little bit less than 2. So there's 1, 2, so it's about where I have it, right about there. I'm not going to do any details on this. I have the basic shape of it, okay? So I don't need to get the thicknesses of the edge just yet. You'll do that later, but not right now. In the back, I'm looking again at the footprint. And the footprint is about here. And then I'm going to come up. And I could use, again, my unit of measurement. The closest vertical edge is my unit of measurement to figure out how tall to make that one. And that one is just 1 unit of measurement because it's further away, so it's only about that high. And notice I'm not seeing as much as these top surfaces, right, as I do of that top surface because it's closer to my eye level, right? So closer to my eye level, the less I see. Now you guys are lucky because normally what happen in this situation in the drawing in class is that I would be putting objects on the model stand that would actually go at your eye level and then above your eye level. But for right now, if you want to just keep them below your eye level, that's okay. But if you want to stack things up so that you get things above your eye level too, you can do that as well. Okay, so we're going to take this drawing over to the table and we're going to analyze it and figure out if we've got where our vanishing point is, where our eye level is. And we'll talk about how you do that over there. Okay.